Welcome to People in Profit. I'm Kate Moody. Coming up, Germany's budget backtrack, how the coronavirus pandemic has forced the government to abandon its black zero bottom line. The cost on the pitch, Europe's football clubs are weighing the financial implications of their forced timeout. And from spirits to sanitiser, we speak to a Japanese sake producer about its efforts to combat the spread of the virus. First up, European governments have been scrambling to protect and kickstart their economies as the coronavirus pandemic plunges many into recession. Germany's approach has surprised many. Domestically, it's abandoned its long-cherished balanced budget rules, known as the Black Zero, and along with France, it's calling for a huge EU stimulus package. So how are German businesses responding to the break in fiscal tradition? Our correspondents Nick Spicer and Anne Maillet sent this report from Berlin.
Despite the restrictions, it's still business as usual for Matthias Menzel. The order books are full, but the company boss worries about clients hit by the pandemic.
This motor is going to the port of Stettin in Poland. We keep exporting pretty much everywhere, but we've noticed things have really slowed down in countries struggling with the virus, like France, Italy, or Spain.
For Menzel, the big change in economic policy comes at the perfect moment. Facing a crisis, Germany is getting out the heavy artillery for its own economy, but also that of the whole European Union by supporting a recovery plan worth 750 billion euros. A show of solidarity, but maybe not entirely disinterested.
We're the biggest economy in the EU and its biggest exporter. And if our main customers have no money, who are we going to sell German cars to? So yes, the government is acting in its own interest, but that's a good thing. It shows they're looking ahead.
So goodbye, economic orthodoxy. For the first time, Chancellor Angela Merkel has even accepted mutualizing European debt, a spectacular about-face, if not entirely surprising.
Merkel has shown in the past that she's able to go against previous government decisions, taken for years, even for decades. That's always been the case in times of crisis. And now we are in a crisis without precedent.
It's a big risk for the Chancellor, but for now, a slim majority of Germans approves of the recovery plan, something unthinkable a few years ago.
No industry has been spared the impact of the coronavirus pandemic and lockdown, not even elite sports. European football leagues suspended matches and training as the virus spread, disappointing fans and throwing into question hundreds of millions of euros worth of revenue from TV rights, marketing, and ticket sales. A report by KPMG in March suggested that ending the current season early could cost top European teams over 4 billion euros. We can speak now to Kieran Maguire, football finance lecturer at the University of Liverpool. Kieran, thanks for being with us on the show. France's Ligue 1 cancelled the remainder of its season in late April. It was one of the few in Europe to make that decision early on. Can you give us an idea of the financial ramifications for French clubs?
As far as the clubs were concerned, they were looking at the costs of continuing playing in respect of players and other staff wages, but also the potential costs of testing players for Covid-19. And they weighed that up against the loss of revenue from match day and commercial partners, but most of all, the potential losses in terms of the TV deals. The French TV deal is less lucrative than some of the other countries in Europe, and I think that was been a driving force in their decision.
So a different approach in the UK, where the Premier League has just agreed to resume training. It's a possible step towards picking up the season. How are the clubs weighing the financial implications versus the sporting aspect of a decision like that?
I think it's very much being driven by both political and financial decisions. If the Premier League had terminated the season after 27 games, they faced a potential €900 million rebate to broadcasters, both domestic and overseas. That was too high a figure, I think, as far as the clubs and the Premier League were concerned. There's also been political pressure put on the Premier League to continue matches, because failure to do so when matches are starting to return in Germany, and it looks as Italy and Spain are also going to return, would have perhaps made the British government's approach to dealing with the coronavirus look poor by comparison.
Well, you mentioned Germany's Bundesliga, which has resumed matches but without fans. Is playing behind closed doors a viable financial decision for top-flight clubs?
Potentially, yes. If you take a look at the data in respect of the Premier League, 11 clubs could have broken even last season, even if they'd given away all of their tickets for nothing at all to fans. So therefore, fan-based revenue is only worth about €1 in 8 as far as the Premier League is concerned, and it's very much driven by TV. So playing behind closed doors is a financial viable option. Whether it's going to be acceptable to fans in the long term, because watching a match behind a screen isn't the same experience as being there, we'll have to wait and see. But I think fans will tolerate that as a short to medium term measure until the all clear is given by the health authorities.
Could the pandemic shift that balance of TV royalties versus marketing versus ticket sales? Do you think it'll change anything, perhaps not in the way the game's played, but in the way football as an industry is run?
I think very much so. The cost base of football clubs across Europe has historically been too high. There's been too much short-termism, and we have a transfer market which isn't really justified by the returns on the prices being paid for players. If you look at the likes of Griezmann, Coutinho, Dembele and so on, all transfers which have taken place at fees of more than €100 million, I think it's fair to say that those players have at best have been average, if not all-round disappointment has been created. So expect to see some changes, and also perhaps to see some alternatives to the way that we see the Champions League being produced. And the reason for that, it's very lucrative and very popular, and the richer clubs certainly are aware of if they want to maximise their income streams in a post-pandemic world, then perhaps the traditional domestic league structure isn't the way forwards.
What about player wages overall? Could they fall?
I think in the short term, it's unlikely, and the reason for that is that if you are in League One, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, the Premier League, you're likely to be on a contract which is 4, 5, or 6 years in length, and therefore those particular contracts are watertight. If the clubs fail to pay the agreed sums to players, then the players will be able to walk away for a zero fee, when under normal circumstances the selling club will be able to command a large transfer fee. I think as we move into the medium and longer term, when contracts are being renewed, there's certainly an opportunity to reduce wage levels. Whether they are too high or not is open to question. You could say it's simply market forces, and compared to the sports franchises in the US, they're not actually particularly high.
Do you think we could see football clubs in Europe going out of business as a result of the pandemic?
Very much so. Football is part of the entertainment industry, it's part of the hospitality industry, and we've seen in the case of national airlines, hotels, clubs, pubs, restaurant chains, many of those are struggling to survive and we're unlikely to have 100% success. We've also got to take into consideration that the European economy is going to have a significant reduction in terms of GDP over the course of the year, which means that people will have less money to spend on non-essentials, and football comes into that. So with less money coming in from fans, from commercial partners, many of whom will not have the resources to renew commercial and sponsorship deals, it's going to be a challenge for clubs to survive. So therefore, sadly, I think we've got to expect significant numbers of clubs going out of business.
And it's not just national leagues that are affected here. The Euro 2020 Championship was due to take place in 12 cities across the continent. It's been delayed until next summer at a fairly significant cost as well.
That's very much so. Both the individual nations who have paid hosting fees to UEFA, and UEFA themselves will have to give refunds. Clearly, the TV companies involved will be demanding money back for 12 months. So this is going to cause a significant cash flow issue as far as the individual football associations and UEFA are concerned. UEFA have offered fans money back, or they say the tickets can be carried over to 2021. I myself have a number of tickets, and it's a difficult decision to make, because as a football fan, we can't even be guaranteed that the matches will be played in 2021.
Kieran Maguire of the University of Liverpool, thanks so much for joining us on People and Profit. Next up, with hand sanitizer in short supply, traditional sake makers in Japan have joined distillers around the world in turning their alcohol stock into disinfectants. But instead of making straightforward hand gel, they've developed very strong drinks as sanitizer substitutes. They all come with a warning: don't drink the disinfectant, it's for external use only. Yuka Royer has this report.
Sake making is an art, a work of craftsmanship and tradition. It's part of Japan's cultural heritage. In recent weeks, many of the country's 1,400 breweries have started making something very different, intended more for people's hands than their palates.
で我々はね、医療用のガウンとか医療用のこのゴーグルとかマスクは作れないんだけども、我々はアルコールなら作れるんですよ。それを作れるという免許をいただいている我々の義務と責任と使命において、それは作らなきゃいけないだろうって、これ欲しい人いっぱい。
The latest bottle from Kuji's company, Nambu Bijin, is essentially diluted ethanol, a far cry from its usual carefully crafted rice wine. The firm is among a growing number of sake makers that have come out with alternative alcohol disinfectant. To clear regulatory obstacles, sake makers labelled them as beverages, while emphasising their high alcohol content. The tacit message here: don't drink them.
もう相当悩みましたよ。だって118年も歴史があって、うちの家の家訓は品質一筋ですからね。なのに私の代になってこんな近代社会なのに飲まないためのアルコールを作るっていうのはものすごい悩みました。
With hand sanitiser in critically short supply, the Japanese authorities last month allowed hospitals and other healthcare facilities to use non-medical alcohol as a substitute, prompting more sake makers to join the bandwagon.
Well, that's all for this week, but don't forget you can find us on social media or on our website, france24.com. Until next time, thanks for watching.